Hey guys, I hope y'all are having a great day today. So we're going to be revisiting my top 5 makeup products of 2020. So I'm going to be incorporating those products into my makeup tutorial for today. And I'm also going to be adding some products that probably would have made the cut if I had done a top 10 of 2020, but they just didn't make the list last year just because I wanted to try to narrow it down to just 5 products. So I did realize in doing that though, that just doing 5 products is like really hard. So for this year, I am going to be doing a top 10 of 2021. That video will probably come out closer to New Year's Eve, but I am going to be testing out just a couple more products before the end of the year. So I just want to wait to see if I'll be able to play around with those products enough to add them to the list if I do like them. I did just buy 3 of the new Fenty liquid highlighters, and I'm probably going to do another haul from Ulta just to use up my 20% off coupon before it expires on Christmas Eve. So either way, just be on the lookout for a top 10 of 2021 video in the next couple of weeks. But like I said, for today, we're going to be focusing on my top 5 from last year, and I'm just going to tell y'all what I think about them like a year later. And like I said, adding in some other products that I really liked from last year that didn't make the top 5 list. So before we get started, if you're new to the channel, hello and welcome, and thank you so much for stopping by. On this channel, we do makeup videos, and they do cater to the 40 and over crowd, but makeup lovers of all ages are welcome. So if you are new here, please make sure you subscribe. I would love to have you join, and I would really appreciate your support. Okay, y'all, let's get started. So I do already have one of my eyes done, so before I show you the palette that I'm going to be using for today, let me first show you another one because I put 2 palettes on my top 5 list last year. So the first one is the e.l.f. Bite Size eyeshadow palettes, and I think at the time that I did that video last year, I might have had maybe 4 or 5 of these, and now I think I have 7 of them. So I do still really love these a year later. Y'all are probably sick and tired of hearing me talk about these, but I think it was just in my last video I told y'all that whenever I do a drugstore video, I'm always reaching for these because they're really good and they're really cheap. They're only $3 per palette, and I think this one is my favorite. This one is called Rosewater, and these shades are like right up my alley, and they're really nice everyday shades. The only difference from palette to palette in terms of performance is really like the fallout, because some of them do have more fallout than others. This one is called Acai You, and this one does have a really good amount of fallout, but most of them don't fall out like this one. But you know, some of them will have more fallout than others. But other than that, they're all really pigmented. They all blend out really well, and like I said, they're really cheap. That's why I put these on my top 5 list. And now let me show you the other product that I put on that list that I'm going to be using for my eyes today. So this is the Natasha Denona Glam palette, and I was really excited about this because it's like a really nice like neutral cool tone palette. And I do have to say, like a year later, yes, it is still a really nice palette, but I don't really reach for this like at all. Like I'm still using those e.l.f. palettes on a regular basis, but this Natasha Denona one, like I can't remember the last time I picked this one up before today. So it is still, you know, really nice, but I'm not still as in love with it as I am those e.l.f. palettes. But either way, I wanted to use this one for today because I haven't used it in a while. So let's start off with the eye look, and I'll show you how I did it using this palette. So first I'm going in with my NARS concealer to prime my lids. This definitely isn't one of the products that made it to my top 5 list last year. As a matter of fact, I think I started using this as an eye primer this year in 2021. Only because I was like really running low on that concealer because it's like one of the mini ones. So I figured using it like this would be a good way to use the product up. And it is actually my favorite product to use as an eye primer right now. But like I said, I started using it that way this year. And then prior to that, I was already familiar with that concealer. It's kind of like an under eye concealer. So let's move on to the palette. And I'm going to be using this shade here. This palette is kind of dirty, but this shade here, these shades don't have names for those of you who like to know what the shade names are. I'm not really into names, but these have more of like instructions on them. So this one is considered one of the outer lid colors, but this is going to be like my main lid color for today. So whenever I'm putting a shade on my lid, I like to first pat it on with a brush and then go over it with my finger to build it up. I don't really have a reason behind that, but I just don't really like going straight in with my finger, even if I think the finger is going to give me more pigment. I just like packing it on with a brush first, and then I'll go over that with my finger. This color, I mean, I don't know if y'all can really tell on camera, the pigment is building up, but this is kind of like a very like cool neutral shade, so it's not really meant to pop too much anyway, but I am going over it with the finger just to build up the pigment. So then I'm going to go in with this shade here. Now I will say, even though I do still really like this palette, this shade here is one of the issues that I have with this palette, in that it looks a lot darker on your eye than it does in the pan. When I apply this color, to me it ends up looking more like that color. But I mean, it's not like a huge like deal breaker for me, but that is one of the first things that I noticed, like the first time that I used that palette. So anyway, I am going to pick up that brown shade and just plop that right on the outer corner. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think that it looks darker on my lid than it does in the pan? Maybe not quite as dark as this, but I feel like it's definitely darker than how it looks in the pan. I also noticed that with that other Natasha Denona palette, the new one, the pink one, is it the retro palette? I noticed the same thing with that. Like some of the colors, they look a lot different on the lid than they do in the pan. So I'm also going to stick with that same brush. I'm just picking up a little bit more of that shadow on the tip of the brush, and then I'm going to drag this on my lower lash line. And then again, sticking with the same brush, now I'm going into that really deep brown shade, and I'm going to put just a tiny bit of that kind of like right on the very outer part of the lid. I've been doing this lately just to add just a little bit more dimension to the whole look. And then if you haven't been able to figure it out by now, I usually place all the shades on my lid and then kind of go back and blend it out. So now I'm taking a blending brush and I'm using this shade here, and I'm going to use that to buff everything out. I'm just going to blend around those colors, and what I like to try to do is like blend around the shades without overlapping the other shades that I've already put down first, just to make sure that this color on the very outer part of the eye is still like really showing up. But again, all the shades that I'm using today, they're quite muted, so you know, they're really not meant to really pop on the eye. It's meant to be like, you know, like a cool neutral look. So, and then I like to blend around the shimmer part last, just to help minimize me picking up shimmer shadow and then getting it on top of the matte shadow. And then I'm going to take another brush and I'm just going to kind of pat over that dark brown shade that I have on the outer part of the lid. I just want to make sure that this is nice and blended, and it's like blended with everything that's around it. And then I'm just doing one final blend right here. So I've been noticing, like, you know, sometimes I will put a shimmery shade on the brow bone to highlight that area, and then sometimes I don't. I feel like I'm leaning toward not doing that. Maybe I'm just like too heavy-handed, but I feel like a lot of times I just put too much shadow right there. So lately I've just been not putting a shimmery shade on my brow bone. So I am going to go back a little bit later on and put something in the inner corner, but for right now I'm going to do my mascara and eyeliner next. So if I had done a top 10 instead of a top 5 video last year, I think that this eyeliner definitely would have made the cut. This is the Rare Beauty liquid eyeliner, so I'm going to be using this one today. Now this mascara, this is the Essence Lash Princess mascara. I have to do a little more research on this because I can't quite pinpoint when I tried this for the first time. I don't know if it was earlier this year or if it was in 2020, but if it was in 2020, I feel like this would have made the cut too, so that's why I'm using this today. If I tried this for the first time in 2021, you will most likely see this in my top 10, because I'm going to do a top 10 video this year. You'll most likely see this in my top 10 products of 2021. But either way, I'm going to be using these two today, so I will do these off camera and I'll come back and then we will move on to the face. Okay, so moving on to the face, and speaking of Rare Beauty, another product that I put on my top 5 was their foundation. So I'm really surprised that Rare Beauty didn't come out with a skin tint this year like everybody else. Maybe they feel like they don't need one because this is like a really buildable foundation, but I just knew that they were going to come out with a skin tint. But anyway, what is this even called? I'm sorry, I can't remember like the exact name of this, but this is the Rare Beauty foundation. It's the only one that they have right now, and I'm in the shade 440C. So I don't remember the last time that I used this foundation, but I do know that I used to really like it, and I think I can positively say that after this video, it's probably not going to be a product that I'm going to be picking up very often, because I have tried a bunch of foundations this year that I do like better than this one. But this one is really good. It's just that when you try out a whole lot of stuff, it's just really hard to like keep all of your stuff in rotation, you know? And I do definitely have, I can think of like 3 other complexion products off the top of my head that I would probably always reach for over this foundation, but this one is still a really nice one. I remember when I tried this for the first time, I was a little nervous because this is not a water-based foundation, and I just didn't know how that was going to work out with oily skin, oily or dry skin actually, but I can tell you guys on my oily skin, it wore very well. I do remember when this came out and everybody was doing their product reviews, it was like very hit or miss regardless of your skin type. But for me, in my oily skin, it worked out very well. I'm just going to put on just a little bit more. And I'm just like building up my second layer like right on my cheeks just to give me a little bit more coverage. This is a really nice shade for me too. 440C, because y'all know I'm always complaining about not having a good undertone, so it's like a tad bit dark, or maybe just because I haven't worn it in a while. I guess on camera it looks okay, but like in my mirror it's looking a little, just a smidge too dark, and I don't remember thinking that like when I did my wear test video on this one. So moving on to concealer, this is another product that I'm sure I would have put on the list if I did a top 10 instead of a top 5, which is why I'm doing a top 10 video this year, because 5 products just isn't enough to add onto like your favorites for the whole year. But this is another favorite of mine that I discovered in 2020. This is the Estee Lauder Double Wear Radiant Concealer in the shade 4C. So just like I was saying with the foundation, you guys often hear me talk about not being able to find complexion products with my undertone. So this definitely is one that works for me because it has a really nice cool undertone, and it's just a little bit lighter than my foundation, so it works to give me coverage and some brightness in some areas. I meant to put my Kevyn Aucoin concealer underneath this, and of course I forgot, but no worries. But anyway, this definitely would have made the list. I think more so because not only does it work for me in terms of the shade, but just like I was just so happy that I found another concealer that I could use, because I feel like with both foundations and concealers, I'm just very limited to what works for me. And prior to me discovering this, the only concealer that I was really using on a regular basis was Too Faced Born This Way. And I had a couple of concealers from the drugstore. Also the Rare Beauty concealer that works in terms of the shade, but it just doesn't give as much coverage as some of the other concealers. But really the only one that I would reach for on a regular basis was Too Faced. And then when I discovered this one, I was just so happy that I had like another option that I could use, you know. But it is a really good concealer if you've never tried it. Gives really great coverage, really nice and creamy. If you've tried, it's a relatively new concealer from Rose Inc. I think that whole brand is relatively new. But if you've tried their concealer, I think the Estee Lauder one is pretty similar. I think Estee Lauder has a couple of different concealers This one is called the Radiant one. So it's definitely like not a matte finish. I don't really care for matte concealers under the eye just because they tend to be a little more drying. This one I just really like the way that it wears on me. So to set my eyes, I'm using my Kosas powder. This is the Cloud Set powder in the shade Pillowy. This is a product that I tried in 2021. Not sure if it's gonna end up being on my top 10 list just yet, so y'all have to, you know, wait and see. It definitely is a really nice powder, but you know, just because of the number of products that I've tried, I don't know if this is gonna make it on the top 10 list, but definitely a really nice powder. But to set the rest of my face, yet another product that I probably would have put on my top 10 list. This is the Sephora Microsmooth powder in the shade Tan. I have used this thing like crazy since I got it. It ended up being like my go-to setting powder for foundation. So this would have definitely made it onto my top 10 list. But I have since kind of been using that Kosas powder more often to set my face, or sometimes I'll use that NYX Can't Stop Won't Stop powder if I want more of like a matte finish. But I use this thing like crazy. So I'm pretty sure I would have put this on my top 10. So I didn't have a blush on my top favorites list for last year. I know that I'm gonna have one, maybe even two on my list for 2021. But for last year, I didn't include one, and I just couldn't really think of one that maybe I would have put on my top 10 list last year. And again, that part of that comes down to just like the number of products that I've tried out in a year. But I just couldn't really think of one. So I'm just gonna go with kind of like a oldie but goodie for blush today. So this is the Note Cosmetics blush. It's called the Luminous Silk Blush in Desert Rose. And this one I think I tried for the first time in 2018, and it's been one of my favorites ever since. I haven't really used it in a while, but it's definitely been one of my go-tos like since I first tried it a few years ago. So I just decided to pull this one out for today just because I haven't used it in a while really, but I'm pretty sure that I will have one or two blushes on my top favorites for 2021. So just be on the lookout for that. So the bronzer that I'm using today easily made the cut as one of my top favorites for last year. This is the Charlotte Tilbury matte bronzer. I have the shade, I'm pretty sure this one is in the shade 3, but it's all like, it's just worn off on the back of it, so I'm not sure. I think this is shade number 3, but I was just blown away when I tried this blush for the first time. This thing is just, it just melts right into your skin. So lately y'all have been hearing me go on and on and on about the Say Beauty Sun Melt. That's a cream bronzer. This one pretty much operates the same way in terms of how it blends into the skin and how it just like, you can build it up as much as you want and it just won't look like too much bronzer. The only difference is that this one is a powder, and I can't really explain it, but like, let me show you guys these two bronzers side by side. So this one is Say Beauty and this one is Charlotte Tilbury, and you see how different they look in the pan, but they look like the same on my skin. It's like the weirdest thing, but if you've tried this and you really like it, and maybe your thing is cream bronzers as opposed to powders, but either way, if you've never tried this Charlotte Tilbury bronzer, you should really try it. It's really nice. I think it only comes in like 4 shades. That's the only thing. They can definitely afford to put like maybe 2 or 3 more shades in there, but the way that this particular color wears on me, I'm willing to bet that all of the shades are pretty versatile, because I feel like a good amount of complexions could probably wear this shade. If you're a little lighter, a little darker than me, you could probably get away with shade number 3. But this one easily made the cut for last year because this is one of my favorite products of the year. And then just putting a little bit more on my nose. So before we move on to my last product for my top favorites from last year, let's go back to the Natasha Denona palette really quickly. And I think I'm gonna go in with, I think I'm gonna try this shade here as my inner corner highlight, just to brighten up the whole look just a smidge. I might have to layer this because I just can't remember what I felt about this color. Yeah, I might layer that with something just a little bit brighter. Actually, no, I think I'm gonna leave it like that. I think that's good enough because I just go overboard with my inner corner highlight sometimes. So I think in order to prevent myself from doing that, I'm gonna stop right there. And then my last product that I put on my top favorites from last year is another one that just very easily made the cut. The Fenty Beauty Cream Gloss Bomb Cream. Fenty Beauty Gloss Bomb Creams. So I kind of collectively put all of the shades in my top 5 products list from last year, but my favorite was this color here, Mauve Wives. And I just couldn't believe, like when I was pulling the stuff out to do the video today, I couldn't believe how long it's been since I've actually tried this, because Fenty has been coming out with like a million lip gloss shades. So I've been, you know, trying out different ones, but this one was hands down my favorite when it came out. So I'm gonna finish everything off with this. I can wear this with or without a lip gloss, and I think for today I'm not going to use a lip gloss with it, just so I can like really see the color. But a brown lip gloss would really nicely complement this, and it would go with the eye look too, but I'm just going to go without one for today. Or lip liner, sorry. Okay, and here is my finished look for today, revisiting all of my favorites from 2020. So let me know what y'all think. Do you have anything that I went over today that's also one of your favorites from last year? Let me know, or just let me know like what your maybe top 3 to 5 products were that you tried in 2020. And like I said a handful of times throughout the video, make sure you're on the lookout for my top 10 of 2021, which will be coming out maybe in like a week or two. So I hope that y'all enjoyed this video today. If you did, please let me know by giving me a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel before you head out, and I will see y'all back here for my next one. Until then, take care. Have a good one, y'all. Bye.